Getting over 400 rejections to my CV was one of the best things that ever happened to me. But I want to take you back to 2008. Between 2008 to 2012, that was the time of the recession. And it was during that time that I chose to start university. But some years later, 3 years to be precise, that's when I graduated. But I studied architecture. And when I graduated and there was no work in the construction industry. Over 400 CVs sent out, one after the other. I remember at that time feeling so deflated and feeling like my dreams had been shattered. I remember specifically one time when I remember counting the 400th CV response back to me, sitting in my front room at my table, and I saw the rejection email come through. Ding, you know that sign, you know that notification bell, but it was actually a negative response. I began thinking to myself, how can this happen to me? For all of my years, this is what I've wanted to do. And I began sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, what am I actually going to do with my life? I remember calling my friend of mine. His name was Ashley. What was his name? Ashley. And I remember sitting there speaking to Ashley. And Ashley basically said to me, Laith, listen, I know that that's what you wanted to do, but you learned some skills using the tools that I use. And I work for myself, and I've got a client at the moment, but I can't do the work, so I'm actually going to give it to you. I thought that there was a glimmer of hope here. But he wanted me to actually design websites and apps. And I thought, websites and apps? I've never actually done that before in my life. But what happened is that Ashley opened the door for me to go on this adventure to learn UX design. You see, learning UX design has been amazing for me. User experience design, to be precise, is the skill of taking a business goal and a user's goal and combining it together. It's basically saying that when you want to use something like Tinder, I don't know if any of you use Tinder in here, the business goal is to actually increase subscriptions, right? But your goal is to find someone to go out and potentially live a life with. I hope so. But you see what we're saying? We want to take the goals of the business and the goals of the actual individual using the product, combine it together and create an experience that is amazing. And I thought, wow, I began to about learning some of the godfathers of UX design. More specifically, his name was Don Norman. Don Norman is like the guy you go to. He is the actual person who designed the Apple mouse, to be precise. He's the one that, as we use our Apple products today, he is one of the early godfathers that began to design some of the early operating systems that we use so seamlessly, but it took a level of experience, it took psychology, design, and applying these skills together to use something that feels so easy for us today. And this is what I began to learn. And I began applying it to small businesses and entrepreneurs. And I began to develop this skill all for myself, teaching myself the necessary skills, going to libraries, going on YouTube and just learning the skill for myself, almost forgetting what I wanted to do, but realizing there's an opportunity here. And because I couldn't get work, I was forced to now become an entrepreneur. I was forced to also work for myself. But you see, sometimes when you're always learning by yourself and not having a mentor, you could make some silly mistakes. One of the mistakes that I made was that I took on too many clients too soon. Not only that, when times got dry, I didn't understand how to market myself correctly. And sometimes I would overcommit myself to do too much work, which meant that, let's say I could only manage 2 clients comfortably. When I took on 4, there would be 2 people that would not get as much of a good job. Are we making sense? So I began to realize that this is not the best way of working. So I thought, you know what? I've got to make a change in my life. I met a friend of mine, his name was Fabian, is Fabian, and he became my business partner. And me and Fabian, we set up an agency called Pixalute. And with this design agency, we said we're going to work together. Now, the reason why I worked with Fabian is because Fabian is a sales specialist. He actually has the skill of being able to network with clients to go out there and actually make the sales. And I have the skill of doing the design work, designing the websites and the apps. So we thought if he goes out and gets the sales and I just do the work, we can come together and we can do such amazing work. But I had shiny object syndrome. And what happened next was I was actually doing the design work, but then I was trying to think, oh, sales looks a bit nice and tasty, so let me try and do some selling. So sometimes there was an aspect in my agency work I didn't realize, which is called client management. And this is a key skill. This is, now you've got the client, how do you keep the client happy even though you're doing the work? How do you make sure that they're happy all the time? And this is a skill that Fabian was meant to do, and I was trying to do the work with him. And now we're clashing in the business. I'm trying to now do the work of design, and he's now doing the sales, and I'm trying to do the sales. And not only that, I said, Fabian, do you know what we can do next? We can do social media marketing. We can do search engine optimization. We can do conversion optimization. So now shiny object syndrome allowed me to add all of these services onto my core skill, and my core skill began to become basically rejected. Now, what happened next was in early 2010 to early 2012, going onwards, things were looking up. And as things were looking up, I was getting more clients and I was getting more business. And the skills of UX design I was learning, I thought, wow, I can make more doing marketing. But what happened next was that over time, I began to lose clients. Not because I didn't know what to do, was because I didn't let Fabian do his job and I didn't have an automatic sales process of actually getting clients. I didn't have a way of consistently getting clients. So as I had clients coming in, I didn't have clients coming in after I finished the work for them, which meant as soon as I finished a job, I would have to hustle again to try and get somebody new. And then I would finish a job and I'd have to hustle again to try and get somebody new. And eventually Fabian had to work on something else, which meant I was in the business by myself. 2017 was a year that changed my life. I began to look at my bank account, and slowly but surely, my money was getting less and less and less. I began to lose clients one by one to a point where I had no money in my business. I couldn't pay my bills and I felt so deflated. I remember talking to my wife at the time and saying to her, babe, I don't even have money now to get a can of beans. You see, looking back, I thought my business was doing well. It was in a good location. We had an office in the Shard in London Bridge. Things look all nice and sexy on the outside, but in my business account, it was a different story. Not only that, I began to say to my wife, I don't know what to do. And she said, you know what, babe, I trust you. I'm just going to believe in you. And I love that woman for that, you know. And on top of that, what happened next was that the house that we were living in at the time, it was owned by a family member. They asked us to move out of that home. But during that time when I had no money, I had to move out of the home. And then I had to stay in one bedroom in my mother-in-law's home with my 2 children. And while I was in that one bedroom, over the space of the 6-month period, I got my wife pregnant again, which meant that a 3rd baby was on the way. Now I was in a position where I'm in this one room, I've got a 3rd child and we can't actually fit in the space. We go to the council office and the council office has us in this space, and we began to sit in the council room, and the council officer said to us, you are actually declared homeless. You have no money, you do not own a home, and you actually need somewhere to stay, and we have nowhere for you at this moment. I began going home that day. I sat on the edge of my bed in that one room at the time, and I began to speak to my wife. And my wife said to me, Laith, just focus on what you're good at. Focus on the skill of UX design that you learned in the beginning. The skill where the system that I actually developed and learned along the way was a customer-first strategy. Learning about who your customers are, where you can find your customers, what you're going to offer your customers, and the journey that you're going to take them on. I began to say, if I applied this 4-step strategy, who, where, what, and the journey into my own life, who do I serve? Where can I find the people that I serve? What am I going to offer to them? And what's the journey that I'm going to take them on as they work with me? I began to apply this into my own life. I began to also inject this into some of the clients I got one by one. And slowly but surely, I began to take myself out of crippling debt. Not only that, me and my wife found a little place for ourselves. And then we began to make some savings for ourselves. And then we began to get more clients. And so on and so forth. I began to work with even better clients, and I began to double and triple my revenue within this past year just by applying this 4-step strategy in my own life. You see, thank you. You see, I remember this looking back, where it's just one simple step, one simple choice, if you make it today, can change your life. But the thing that I had forgotten was my core skill. And what I believe is every single person in this room has a core skill. Every single business in this room has a core service that they offer. But sometimes we get shiny object syndrome, either individually or in our own businesses. And the challenge you may have, and the challenge you don't understand, is that as I began to grow in my own career and speak to more millionaires and sometimes people that earn even more, they always say to me, Laith, focus on one thing. Be so amazing, so spectacular at that one thing so that everybody wants to work with you, and just increase your prices. So I want to say to you today, if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, maybe you've had shiny object syndrome. Maybe you don't know who you serve. You don't know where to find your customers. You don't know what to offer them. And you don't have a clear, distinct journey to take them on. Well, I want to work with you today. I want to show you my customer first strategy. And this strategy will help you to gain more customers in your business. It will also help you to take them on a journey that you've created that's bespoke to you. You can create a unique system that is distinct and specific to who you are, that helps people to understand the journey you want to take them on. And if that's you, if you look on the paper that you were given earlier, you'll find my contact details. And literally just text me and say, Laith, let's go. And I'm going to work with you and we're going to make you make more money this year. Is that okay? Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.